So today we've learned a lot about biology, the three pillars, and the three pillars. One thing I want to add to this is that's where we always want to start. And also apologize about my voice. I've lost it a couple months ago and it's still coming back. So I'm going to talk about the 5 R's of nutrient stewardship. Last year I spoke on something similar, and if you remember, it was actually 4 R's. But I'll touch on that. But so what we want to take a look at is the right source, the right rate, the right time, the right place, and then the right manner. So when we're doing this, we got to ask ourselves, well, yeah, that sounds great. Well, how do we do this economically, right? I think one big key answer to that is by banding your fertility and adding biology. So to stick to the 5 R's, we kind of got to identify, well, where are we at? What kind of soil do we have? What's our organic matter? What's our macros look like? What's our micros look like? What are we going to grow there? So we got to be able to identify accurately, or at least as accurately as we know how, to know, well, what is our roadmap going to look like? We know we want high yields, right? That's everybody puts crop in the ground. Ultimate goal, we want high yields. Well, how do we get there? Okay. So on soil samples, they're not all alike. One thing I wanted to point out here is a lot of that was spoke about this morning. It has your CECs, it has your organic matter, it has your macros, your micros, your pH, all very valid data that you can make educated and informed decisions on what you need. Water solubility, that's another key that I think is very important. Sometimes you will see, when I look at soil samples, what I often see is calcium may be off the charts, like very high, right? And then you go to the water solubility and virtually maybe a very tiny fraction of that is available. Okay, that's a game changer. Okay, that's something that you would need to address. We learned a little bit this morning about calcium and how it helps flocculate, and it does a lot of things in the crop as well, and your soil. So this is kind of another, it's the same soil sample, but it comes in 3 different ways. Midwest Labs is somebody that we've used for, I don't know, Gary, how long? 15, 20?
Yeah, over 20 years.
20 years, and they've been very good. And this is kind of a special report, I guess I should say, that they do with us and for us. And I really like it because dummies like me, and I'm not colorblind yet, but it's been a few years, but I can look at that and say, oh, well, that looks good. That's green. Oh, blue, that's pretty high. You know, red, I better take a look at it. So it gives you a really good overview picture and easy to read format. This is essentially the first, this data on the nutrient side in a different form, okay, easier to read. So the soil sample is the bigger picture, right? Oftentimes what I see is, and I'm not bashing anybody or bashing the way they do things, but you'll get an incomplete picture, okay? This generally, like a lot of farmers, and I get it, needs to be done sometimes. You only got so much time and resources. So you might have your co-op or whoever pull your sample. Well, oftentimes what I see, and this is multiple different co-ops, different counties, different states even. Oftentimes the commonality that I see is they're only going to pull the nutrients for what they sell, right? If they're going to spread MAP or DAP or whatever the case is. They generally pull the 3 macros, the NP and K. A lot of times we'll have your CECs. And sometimes you will have some traces and things like that. So one thing I wanted to point out is that, you know, to accurately address the 5 R's of nutrient stewardship, you got to have a clear picture. And to have a clear picture, you got to be able to identify. And to be able to identify, you have to have the picture. So What it allows when you have the full picture is you can take those limited amount of dollars and limited amount of resources, and you can apply what you need. For instance, on that soil sample earlier, you noticed one sample was off the charts in phosphorus. But you want to go and put phosphorus out there. Is that the best way to spend your dollar? No, not to mention it can have an antagonistic relationship with other nutrients that you might already be short on. So you may have this much zinc, for instance, and this much phos. Well, they can be antagonistic to each other. So you add more phos, you add this much zinc, and you don't add zinc. None of that's going to be available virtually. So things like that, it comes down to ratios like we talked to earlier. Balance. We want to find a balance, right? The good Lord made things work perfectly. We need to try to figure out, and it takes all of us, we all learn together. There is a lot of experience in this room, a lot of knowledge. All that I'm thankful that I'm able to talk to most of y'all, have talked to most of y'all. I've learned something from everybody in here. I'm the dumbest guy in the room, and I'll be the first to tell you that. But I appreciate what you guys do and all that you've learned, and that is able to help me to help somebody else. So we just got to work together to do things, excuse me, that I believe the good Lord intended us to do. Manage it like He designed it. Find that balance. Okay. Another thing is secondary and trace minerals are important. They're important enough to put up on a sample because that will help you give the picture to balance things out. A little bit can go a long way. Okay. Sulfur, boron, zinc, manganese, copper, none of that's on there. And that helps paint a completely different picture on how to navigate forward. Water solubility, again, tells more of the story. Can show adequate, may not be available. So basically, in state, to address the 5 R's, you got to have a good, solid picture to help navigate where you want to go. And that will help you design your roadmap to success. So banding, right? So I know we even touched on it a little bit earlier. If you were trying to cover 2 million pounds of soil, okay, it's going to take a lot more volume to cover that amount of soil. If you're banding, you're concentrating it. You're taking that same overall analysis, okay, and you're banding it and concentrating it where the roots can reach it. Not only you're feeding the crop on what it needs, because when you're banding, I might add, there's different forms this will go over, but you can eat, like in furrow, you can add zinc. You may not want to add sulfur and boron. So you can address your specific needs at specific times of the crop life when it needs it, how much you need. So you're really able to drill down ultimately and give your plant what it needs, when it needs it, how it needs it. Another thing it will do, so basically studies have shown it's about 2 times as efficient as broadcast, sometimes arguably more. Gives you the ability to practice the 5 R's. You only apply what you need. There's a lot of different products to choose from. It's a lot more broad than MAP and DAP and things of that nature, which there are times and places to use that as well. But and then you can also do custom blends. So basically, our theory is take the savings from broadcasting and apply that to banding. We believe you get a lot more for your money. Feed the crop, but not the weeds. Different forms of banding. There's everything from in-furrow, 2x2, side dress, stream, wide drop, foliar. Those are all actually forms of banding. They all get the product or the nutrient where you need it. So different nutrients may need a different method of application. So starter fertilizer, that's one method of banding that we have found over the years to be very efficient. Just in furrow, we always like to add MVP. We also like to add premium 21 or humic carbon sources. And then we also have a product called Kickoff. It's specifically for in-furrow. And then zinc is another, oftentimes, depending on your sample and your soil, is something good to add in furrow as well. Starter row for the organic side. Now beside the row 2x2, you can say what I call it a little bit hotter, right? That's where you can add your boron, your sulfur, a couple not macronutrients, but I would consider secondary nutrients are very important, but oftentimes show low as well on soil samples. So we have something called sideband, which is formulated for the 2x2. Complete O on the organic side. Keep in mind there are custom blends available. That's one thing that we've always prided ourselves on. We like to stick to the 5 R's. You know, what do you need? How much do you need? And we kind of help get that together for you. Blend anything together that we can. So, you know, whatever your needs are, let us know. Or we can also help. I got very smart people that help me do it as well. Help identify if you don't know what you need. You know, identify that. One thing I want to point out, which I'll show a couple pictures and trials, that starters with biology, even if you think you have healthy soil, they have proven efficient and effective in ROIs. Many cases. So why do we add biology? Read the list yourself there. Quite a few, several I didn't add. It buffers. It enhances nutrient cycling. It'll help with the nutrient extraction and uptake. It'll make your root mass grow. It'll help the exudate extraction. Overall plant health, plant tolerance, as we saw like at AJ's when me and Monty went out there. We were able to visually see that come back after it gets hail. I know Jacoby's got hail this year. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it made a huge difference in how that bounced back from those incredible stresses that every crop's going to experience, everything from weather to too much rain, too little, too dry, too little rain, hail, you name it. Also, we saw how it will increase soil health, porosity, and tilth. Just watched a video on that from Monty. Water infiltration, water holding capacity. That kind of goes back to the 25%, 25%. We've got to manage air and water, right? That's huge. And if we don't do the basics, it's going to be very difficult to address the drill down and address the nutrient side of things. So where does starter time? Especially in low soil temps. Okay, there's some studies that show the percent of available phosphorus at different temperature levels. You'll notice, is this the middle one? Is that the pointer? You'll notice there at 50 degrees, not very much available. Okay, if you're planting in cool temperatures, cool soils, even if you have pretty good phosphorus in your soils, it may not be a bad idea to take a look at adding a little bit to get your plant going. Why is phosphorus so important? Has anybody ever seen that in your fields? You see purple, that's a good indicator. Could be low on phosphorus. It's not getting it. So it helps, stimulate root and shoot growth and also vigorous seedling growth. Many other things, but early on in the season, definitely very important. You see that out in your field, it would definitely be worth addressing. This is this one of yours, John? So I got a few slides, courtesy of John Dana. And this is from 2022. This is a starter application. They both had MST on seed or just treated. Both had MST, but then the one had the actual in-furrow starter pack, which he had the MVP, KTI pack, and GMO. This is organic. And then the no starter. Pretty big difference there. And you can even see on the picture how close that is. You know what I mean? So
And they're just starting to poke through.
yeah. So pretty big difference. So here's an organic growth corn program. Basically almost a 13 bushel difference. They were both fallen soybeans, planted mid-May, 6 replications of this trial. which I think is very important. Sometimes one trial doesn't tell the whole story. Trials can get finicky sometimes. The starter program had, again, the JMO, KTI Pack, AVP, also had MST. And then he also tried another product, it's called Organic, which I'm familiar with, but 200 pounds of that, and I guess there was no response to that time of cypress.
Yeah, I should say, this is at a fairly low population, 25,000. The ears are filled to the tip. Any additional nitrogen was.
And I've been able to visit several of John Daniel's field days. If you ever have a chance, there's a couple a year generally. There's a road tour of farms. It's, maybe from my area, just a few hours, definitely worth the drive. If you ever get a chance, you get to see a lot of different, I think it was 14 different farms this year. You see everything from organic to Amish farm to the English methods, see a little bit of it all. So I always enjoy that. So thank you, John, for putting that on. Hopefully you get to enjoy that for years to come. So this is another trial on organic soybeans. So they had broiler manure. This is also mid-May planted, late May, and then very similar starter program. He also added Endure in there, which is a rhizobium. Now rhizobiums, so we like MST, but rhizobiums also have their place. They can be very important, especially to what we call virgin soils. If you are putting like a soybean in a soil that has never had soybeans, I would definitely recommend to take a strong look at adding rhizobium, the correct rhizobium. There's many different kinds. So there's one specifically for beans. There's one, different crops have different rhizobium strands. So with that program, it was about 5 3/4 bushels. So this is in Fertile, on another part, southern Illinois. This had a check, and then 5 gallon of our 421-4, half-gallon trace, 3 gallons of SP1, which is now MVP. I call it SP1's big brother. Yield difference pretty substantial there. Is that what happens all the time? No, not what happens all the time. Have we seen it in more than just this case? Yeah. It's not just a one-off either. So the power of banding your starter and furrow, especially, we really like to get the SP1, the biology, the humics right there in the rhizosphere area. That's where it can create that relationship and really thrive. This is also from JDS. So basically on the starter and no starter comparison of 11.4 bushel, nothing to sniff at. Definitely worth its weight in gold, I believe, for the cost of a program like that. It definitely had a very good ROI once again. He also, so this right here, I don't think we've talked about much. This particular, we'll be talking about it. So blue M, basically it's a foliar. Gary's going to like this on much more in-depth information there. It did not have a response there. I'll let him cover it, but there are other areas where we've shown very good response, and I think it comes down to nitrogen levels, the weather, nitrogen, if it's too dry, it kind of helps even that plane through the entire year or the season. In this particular instance, it wasn't needing nitrogen. It had a very good environment.
This was the same plot or the same farm that the Chilean nitrate did not give a response.
Yeah.
Again, at a higher population, we may have seen a response. And this past year, I think Gary has a slide on this past year, we saw April.
Right. So nothing's perfect every time, all the time.
But we keep looking.
And I actually, that's on your field day, isn't it? Did we visit this field?
Yes, we visited the field, but we had the organic field day. It's also on our tour.
Yeah.
It's also on the tour.
Lots of good stuff to look at. So in that particular instance, wanted to hit on that. That's not always a scenario though. Side dressing, one thing I want to get the point across, it is more than just nitrogen. Oftentimes people go out, just side dress nitrogen, call it a day. Well, we have a belief and we have a lot of years of experience to show that adding biology like carbon, humus, other nutrients such as potassium, boron, sulfur, things like that, other traces can be extremely beneficial and really help the nitrogen use efficiency side of things. Can also fill in the gap on when you need nutrients, and I'll get ready to go over that here in a second. So look at these charts here. That's boron, iron, manganese. I mean, every nutrient you might think of. This is kind of the curve. It's hard to see here, but through the life of the plant, when is it going to uptake the nutrients and how much, and where is it coming from? I believe this is from Purdue University, which teamed up with Ohio State University and I think Michigan State University on this side. So it's three different, pretty well-renowned colleges, different areas. So there's a lot going on in that plant throughout the entire life cycle, right? It's not just nitrogen that you need. Oftentimes in fields that I've walked and I've seen a lot of potassium that seems to be issues later on in the season. That's a huge thing to fill the gap. Boron, sulfur, just to mention a few. So that kind of just brings home the point of the plant just doesn't need nitrogen. It's a balance, right? A balance. You got to find that balance. What you need in one field may not be the same in another as well. Foliar feeding. Well, when do you want to foliar feed? Could be for a variety of reasons. It's not just to fix a problem. Sometimes it's to maintain a healthy crop. You want to maintain your yields, or you might have high yield goals. Also, it's used to address nutrient deficiencies or tie up. If there is an imbalance, sometimes that can tie up because there are antagonistic relationships for different nutrients in the soil, which can tie it up, which means it ain't getting it through the roots, which means you might have to get it to it through a different method, which may be a fault. If it's under stress, pH problems in the soil, disease or pest management, or poor tilth and root system. And that's why, I'll say it again, we take a systematic approach, right? We try to take care of all these things throughout the entire season, right? Start with the residue management, start with all these things and apply these principles. And that will alleviate maybe the need at more often times from having to do it for various reasons, like the poor tilth reason or poor root system. This right here is from University of Nebraska. It kind of shows, well, is my plant really getting this? If I go out there and spray, is it really getting to the plant? Well, studies show, yeah, and it's not, that study particularly is for like zinc, manganese, iron, boron, potassium, phosphorus, nitrogen. But yes, if you look at that, you're talking hours, it's already, a lot of that's been uptaken. One other, timing is important. AgriK Plus is the foliar product. It's a potassium acetate product. It also has traces in there, boron, sulfur, manganese, and zinc. The potassium acetate, if you look at this thing here, from the Journal of Plant Nutrition, it kind of shows the different forms of potassium and what their carriers and what that availability is. Potassium acetate just blew the others out of the water when it showed percent of absorption. So it can be a very good, not just foliar, it can also be soil applied. I'm still learning more on that aspect, but I do believe that it can function very well in the soil applied product as well. Here's a sample stream program for alfalfa. Basically, stream applied after each cutting. Yeah, it's a pretty solid program there. And also, like calcium, that's a big missing link we see a lot of times as well. Simple soybean stream program. This was actually applied from a grower. I got to walk his field every year for the last 3 years. And so of this sample program, he actually applied it. What did it show? Well, he got a 15 bushel an acre difference at about $12.50 a bushel. So his gross profit was about $187.50. Investment was 85. So his ROI was about 102.50. That's a pretty solid ROI. Was it worth his time? I would say so. Yes.
How is that applied? I mean, not in firm, obviously.
Well, and I think he actually did mix that up between, was it two, Ken, you were with me, was it two different applications? I think one, just one, it was one. So
Pre-planned or?
no, at R1. Stream, it was stream applied. Yeah. Yeah, it was Daniel's, right? It was Daniel. So yeah, stream applied. One application, I was mistaken. Sorry, I thought I had two. So ultimately, I think by banding and applying some of the 5 R's of nutrient stewardship, as well as the basic principles, I think ultimately we can at least mitigate the need for dry fertilizer in some cases, completely replace it. I think over time that will definitely get a higher ROI because, like Dr. Muir said, like phosphates, what was it, close to 20% on average of what you put out there is actually getting in there. I don't know about you, but to me, that doesn't seem like a very good ROI from my perspective. But there is a time and a place for everything as well. There is no one right way, one silver bullet. That's why it's a systematic approach. And each method may not apply to everybody the same way. So this gentleman actually did replace dry fertilizer. Haven't used any in 5 years. That was his in-furrow program. He did a wide drop. Oh, sorry. And I think it was not Helen, but Nutrient, his agronomist there said, you're mining the soil, you're going to be so short of nutrients, and his organic matter is going up, all the soil samples are showing everything going up. He's not mining it. And he's saving quite a bit of money as well. And then this was for his corn, but you'll notice he uses about a half rate on his soybeans. So no matter what, whether you do in furrow, 2x2, side dress, whatever your case is, AgriEnergy will have a product that will fit your needs. We have quite a few products not listed. This is just a sample. So, just reach out to your representative or your dealer. They can help find the right product to fit your needs. So, instinct, the recipe for success, practice the 3 pillars of biological farming. You got to manage the air and water, right? You got to manage the residues and manage the fertility. And I think to do that, to dig a little deeper, you got to look at your soil samples. You got to know what nutrients you need, how much of that. You want to do the 5 R's. We believe by banding, and that will actually help maximize your ROI. Excuse me, and then add biology with every application. So thank you very much for your time today.